SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Talk Mississippi on, well, trying to remember. Rhino, what day is it?
It's Friday, y'all.
Yes, and trust me, let me explain something on his behalf. I didn't ask him about this, but I feel certain I can analyze this. I'm going to put my analytic skills to the test. The lack of enthusiasm in his voice was not a lack of enthusiasm. That was a lack of energy, because this has been 17 weeks long, this week has, and next week is going to be about the same. Is that a fair analysis?
Yeah, it's not drinking from the fire hydrant. It's one of those big plugs in the dam that they open up every once in a while to relieve pressure. I've been sitting at the bottom of that trying to drink this whole week.
Well, and that's the thing. You know, I started putting stuff together for today's show last night, looking over some stuff, and very quickly realized this is the first time I can remember, and, you know, we've been doing this a long time, Rhino. Usually I'm digging and trying to find enough things to where we're armed and informed and prepared. Now the job is to weed it out and decide what we're going to use and what we're not. It's completely turned on its head in a good way. I do want to lead with some fairly breaking news. About an hour ago, President Trump put out on his Truth Social platform that next week he's going to sign an executive order to ban the push for paper straws because he said they don't work. Back to plastic. The President of the United States put that out, so that's as official as you can get. I thought it was Elon joking, because I first saw it when Elon shared a screenshot of it on X. And I said, oh boy, he's poking fun at everything. No, he was just sharing it from the President. So if you really enjoy your paper straws, well, we're going to add you to the list of people that just are getting a continuous flood of bad news right now from the Trump administration because they're going bye-bye. Have you ever used a paper straw?
I have, and that's why I was going to say, if you're a huge fan of paper straws, like they're your preferred straw, my lack of enthusiasm should in no way be an understatement for how important it would be to seek some help. Because obviously you're not in a good place if you're torturing yourself like that.
That is the imbibing version of self-flagellation.
Pretty much.
It's just sad. I've used those a couple of times. The end always gets wet and chewed uppy. Is that a word? It's a word now. And the whole thing just gets soaked through and it's over. I don't care how they coat it. And I'm also not a fan of the, and I'm sorry, I may offend somebody here. Wait a minute. No, those two phrases don't go together in a sentence for me these days. I'm not sorry, but some people may be offended. The folks that show up with their own metal straw and their little wire brush to clean it after and everything. Just use a straw like a normal human being and let's move on. Those things just seem like they would be, you're never going to get them clean enough inside, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, and that's the irony of it, is a lot of those people are germaphobes. And it's like you're carrying around probably the germiest thing you own.
Well, you and your botulism stick, have fun over there. I'm going to open up this brand new plastic straw, use it once, and then dispose of it, and then we'll all move on with life.
Then you have the in-between.
Nice.
You have those boba tea looking, because they're gigantically wide, silicone straws. Have you seen those?
Yes.
Or some of them roll up into a little bitty case.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want a switchblade straw. I don't want a straw that's like a party streamer where you blow in the end of it and it goes and unrolls and then you can drink. I want a straw. That's it. Nothing else. Just a straw. This is not a complicated piece of technology, but any of the reusable ones to me are just, like I said, they're a botulism stick. They're filled with germs by the time you're done. I don't care how you clean it. If you want to combat that, don't bleach them on the inside. You're setting yourself up for an entirely different set of problems then. You know somebody will try it, right? Oh, you're laughing.
Oh, yeah.
You know they will.
No, I know somebody out there with a metal straw has put it in the dishwasher and just been like, I use the dishwasher. It's clean. You know it's true.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not arguing it one bit. And that, by the way, for those of you that like to score along at home, that was my first heartfelt, slightly depressed sigh of the show. I'm not sure what the over-under is set out today. I would assume it's high. But I would like to remind you, please, no wagering. Had a tornado overnight in Tennessee. I don't know if you saw that. Well, I've never seen anything quite like this. The national press are all reporting on it and putting suspected tornado in quotation marks. Now, this killed a mother and their child. So this is a serious thing. Mother and child killed by suspected tornado. Why are we suddenly hedging that? And we've been screaming about every natural disaster while it's still unfolding before anybody knew the full facts for quite a while. I just find it interesting. It seems like it's a little bit of a shift in the way we're going to talk about things. Or is it because it's in Tennessee?
I think that's one of those weird things about the weather people. They get really hyped up about hurricanes and almost want to wish them into existence, but when it comes to tornadoes, unless it follows very strict guidance from not just the Fujita scale, you have to use the enhanced Fujita scale. And if it doesn't meet certain criteria, then you can't call it a tornado, even though it was a spinning cloud that came out of the sky and knocked down the home.
Yes. Well, the trampoline's gone. I'm pretty sure we know what happened here. And you talk about them being so eager to wish hurricanes into existence. Don't forget our bomb cyclones and our polar vortices, and everything has to have a name now. I can't wait for polar vortex Clyde to come along. Something like that. Something just ridiculous. We are desperately trying to anthropomorphize our weather. Why am I using so many big words today is probably what we need to spend some research dollars on.
I'm just, now I'm feeling sorry, because I'm one of those kids growing up, I could never find my name spelled properly on the little keychain thing in the gas station or the tourist trap. But I imagine the people who are named after places feel the same way when it comes to all these named storms, because you're never going to have Hurricane Cleveland or Polar Vortex Phoenix.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. It would seem kind of fitting somehow. And I secondhand feel your pain on the little keychain thing in the stores, because now, while Dave is not very hard to find, except that they are always sold out, so that's the opposite end of the problem. My mother always had that problem. Her name's Glenda, but it's spelled with a Germanic spelling with an I-A at the end instead of just A. Never could find that one. So I got her one time and took a Sharpie and just put a little I in between the D and the A at the end. She acted like she appreciated it. We're going to pretend she did because, it's my self-esteem we're dealing with here. Despite all the winnowing through and all the working through everything, I'm not even sure where to start today. And we've got a great show today. We've got Joel and Natasha from America's Roundtable radio program coming up. I'm going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Our old buddy Ben from down the hall at SuperTalk Mississippi News going to join us next hour to talk about, well, there's nothing going on. I don't know what he's going to talk about. Legislature's in session. Trump's in the White House. Elon Musk is, if you listen to the left, running around with a sickle and chopping people's heads off. But I'm sure we'll come up with something. But the rest of the time, I have like 2-3 pages worth of stuff that I've gone through.
I even have us a doomsday update from the asteroid impact.
Oh, very good. You told us yesterday. I think they had increased it to 1.9%.
Yeah, yesterday
right?
They bumped it up to a 1.9% chance of an impact of the 250,000-ton asteroid that's 300 feet across. Well, that 1.9% chance yesterday has been bumped up to a 2.3% chance today.
It's coming for you.
We got a 1 in 43 shot.
Those of you that wrote in giant asteroid on your ballot, you're making a difference, apparently.
Just a little too soon. 2032.
Yeah. 2032. There's a group of people that are going to say, okay, let's get Aerosmith on a rocket right now to go up there and move it.
We got to be teaching some offshore guys how to fly space shuttles.
Yes. Because that's the much easier route than the other way around, obviously. We continue on this Friday morning on Middays in the Element Well Studios next.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Asteroid doesn't stand a chance. Not a chance. Nothing to worry about. They can raise that number as high as they would like. Welcome back to Middays in the Element Well Studios. Dave Hughes in on this Friday, and, it's amazing to me the things, and we're going to talk about this throughout the show, and we'll get more into it later on when we have a bit more time. The types of payments, and I haven't asked him, but I suspect, Rhino, you've been collecting ridiculous payment things that have been dug up, just like I have.
Oh, yeah, I've been bookmarking them left and right.
Yeah, my bookmarks on Twitter are just absolutely ridiculous at this point.
I do have a favorite in the clubhouse, though.
Okay, what you got?
There was a almost $350,000 payment to the University of Washington for, quote, developing a Spanish-language homosaurus.
A what now?
Developing a Spanish-language homosaurus.
Homosaurus.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one at the National Natural History Museum. The homosaurus. Do I want to know?
Apparently,
or are they talking about like a thesaurus for LGBTQ?
Yeah, it's a way to somehow homogenize the Spanish language to get it away from using gendered language, because there are little things like feminine nouns and masculine nouns in languages like Spanish, but that goes against the principles of wokeism and the LGBTQ plus pause.
I'm sorry, you can't go in and just completely change the language because your feelings are hurt.
But they can spend $350,000 of your tax dollars on it.
Yeah. Well, my favorite one I've found so far, if we're going with our clubhouse leaders, here's mine. I'm going to enter this one into the competition. The USAID shuttled out some money. You've heard a lot about the influence they have been peddling, or buying, I should say, from various news outlets. What you may not have heard, they spent tens of thousands of dollars and paid it to the people that owned bodybuilding.com to shut their forum down. Now, process that for just a second. Just think about it. Your tax money went to close down a forum at bodybuilding.com. They didn't like the way that was going. But that is just how ridiculous this has been this entire time, and nobody knew. It was there, but nobody bothered to look because everybody was on the take. Now, we hear all of the inane screeching and moaning about the unelected billionaire Elon Musk coming in and doing this. We've already got a billionaire in the White House. Yes, they can't be bought. They don't care. They're the perfect people to come in and deal with this. Because they don't care about $20,000. Elon's got more than that in the cup holder in his Tesla. That's nothing to him. So, you turn them loose, good stuff starts to happen, and then, of course, now immediately the Democrats are running forward. But there's one thing I want to point out, and I have pointed this out before on local level, state level, national level. You can watch this happen, and once you understand this psychological principle, you can see it in action from the left on a regular basis. In this case, what's one of the main things that they're accusing Elon Musk and Doge of doing or suspect they're going to do? They keep talking about him having access to people's social security numbers and payment details and all the sensitive data on American citizens, and that's wrong because that could be misused. There is a psychological mechanism, process called projection. In this particular instance, and in a lot of instances, what that means is liberals see someone doing something and they know what they would do if they were in that situation, so they assume everyone else is going to do it too. Because I guarantee you, if it was not Elon Musk, it was Hakeem Jeffries, and he had access to all of that, he knows what he would do.
Yeah, he projected it. He said they're raiding the government, attempting to steal taxpayer money.
Yes, it's projection. Now, this is kind of a psychological defense mechanism. And here's why I say that. Because if you know what you would do in the other guy's shoes and it's worse than what that guy is doing, you either have to drag him down to your level morally or admit that they're a better person. No one is ultimately equipped to fully admit to themselves inside their head that someone else is a better person than they are. Can't do it. So they automatically default to, oh, well, he's just as bad as I am. Listen to what he's going to do. That's what you need to hear when they say these things. Because that's really the context behind it. And I think that gets lost all the time because we default to the surface level and talk about how crazy they are and how awful they are. But you have to realize the motivation behind all of these attacks. They're going to attack anyone that tries to do anything they are not strong enough to do themselves. That's the whole mechanism. And once you start to understand that, you look at them in a different light. They become less threatening, they become less serious, and they become less important. So I think we need to normalize talking about this so that everyone knows exactly what's going on. It's not as simple as, oh, they hate Trump. Well, they do, but there's a lot more going on than that. We just had 4 years of seeing how they, raided the coffers during the Biden administration, and it continues to come out even now. We'll get more today, I'm sure. They either have to admit how horrible that is or assume the Republicans are going to do it too. That's only two options. And the vast majority of people are going to choose option 2. Oh, the bad guys. I know I would be doing that, and so obviously they're doing it too. My favorite part, though, have you seen where they think it's a gotcha right now? They keep bringing out things that they have found. They're getting into it now, and they're starting to bring out things they have found where money went to Republicans. And they think it's a gotcha. They think it's a big deal. And they're getting a little bit shocked when they release this, and other Republicans are saying, good, we want all of this gone. We don't care who's doing it. We want the wrong things to stop happening. And they can't process it. It's like coming up to somebody with pronouns in their email signature still, and talking about how attractive a woman is. They can't process it. And they don't know what to do. So it's going to get more entertaining before it gets less entertaining. It may not ever get less entertaining, because I'm not going to lie, Rhino, I'm having a ball. Are you enjoying this as much as I am?
There's a bit of actual enjoyment out of it, a lot of schadenfreude, a lot of happiness at just the sheer misfortune of others. And that's may not be the nicest thing, but yeah, they want you dead and in a ditch, or at the very least demoralized, so I don't really feel sorry for them all that much.
Well, after we have spent, and this is a great example, it's really kind of note for note, this is what happens when you play with fire. You eventually get burned. Because I'm sorry if you spend 4 years using the Justice Department and everything else to sue and to charge Donald Trump and everybody around him for various crimes. You don't then get to get upset when the Republicans come in and they're looking at what you did and bringing it out into the light of day. The double standards have worn off, because here's the other thing. And this has become apparent with the payments that we've heard about. It's become apparent if you start looking at the mainstream media through the proper lens. Don't listen to them. The spin machine is still in full operation. Start checking around. Everybody's sick of this nonsense. And everybody's ready for it to stop, no matter what. That has kind of become the predominant push for action in America, to which I say, it's about time. Good. By the way, Rhino, I forgot to ask you before we came on, did you get that thing I sent you on Twitter?
Yes.
Yeah, if you can, get that audio, and later on, it'll be next hour sometime. Talked about it yesterday. I want to give everybody a chance to hear just how little has changed in 50 years up until now. It's fascinating. When we come back, Joel and Natasha join us from the America's Roundtable radio program. We'll do that next on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Rogers Deb Show FM. Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our show
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
SuperTalk Mississippi Middays in the Element Wealth Studios on a Friday morning. Before we get to Joel and Natasha, always enjoy talking to them. Always a great conversation. Want to let you know about something if you haven't heard about it yet. This coming Wednesday, a big deal for us here at SuperTalk and for people all over the state of Mississippi. There will be a celebration of life for our buddy Paul Gallo Wednesday. And trust me, it's going to be packed. The movers, shakers, and playmakers are all going to be there just as he deserves. Going to be honoring Paul Wednesday at Broadmoor Baptist Church in Madison. It'll start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon next Wednesday, celebrating the life and career of someone. You cannot understate how much of an impact Paul had on politics in the state of Mississippi. He is severely missed, and we get the chance, everyone, to get together and celebrate his life. It'll be Wednesday, 2 p.m. in the afternoon, Wednesday, at Broadmoor Baptist Church in Madison. So, by all means, participate if you can. It's going to be a great event. It really is. And I almost said well-deserved, but that just somehow feels like an understatement to me. It's a little more than well-deserved. So, yeah, just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. May tell you again before we get done here today, because this is important. Wednesday at Broadmoor Baptist Church in Madison, the celebration of life for, as he would put it, our brother in broadcast, Paul Gallo. That will be next Wednesday. Let's see here. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and of course, when we get Joel and Natasha on, and we're working through some technical things right now, I believe. Obviously, there's a lot we need to talk about, and the big one is the move that President Trump announced when Prime Minister Netanyahu was in town. He took a meeting in Washington at the White House, and he announced the intention for the U.S. to become involved. It was an interesting announcement, become involved in Gaza. And let's just go ahead and bring Joel and Natasha in, the co-hosts and co-founders of America's Roundtable radio program. Been a while, guys. How you doing?
It's great to see you again, Dave, and thank you so much for inviting us on SuperTalk Mississippi Media.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to see you.
Well, this is a big week, and I was prefacing it, you probably heard, with the announcement that President Trump made when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was at the White House about America's intention to get involved in the Gaza Strip situation and basically go in, take it over, relocate the Palestinians, and rebuild it into something else. I want to get your thoughts and your take on this entire situation as it unfolds.
Right. It's certainly a game changer, not just only for Israel and its neighbors, but for the entire region. In fact, as Secretary Pete Hegseth said, it's out-of-the-box thinking. It changes the dynamic. It changes the paradigm significantly because for the longest time, what we have been doing as Americans, as a U.S. government, is engaging with Palestinian Authority, which is very corrupt. And then on the other side, Hamas was actually governing Gaza. So at this time, what President Trump has presented, which also Secretary Marco Rubio has suggested as a very generous deal and a game changer, is to be able to look at Gaza with a different set of lens, seeing how the people could be moved out of Gaza while there is significant work being done. We don't have a lot of the key details yet, but from what we gather, the president has communicated that at this stage, we do not need boots on the ground. So this is something that will engage Arab partners. And I think they have a responsibility. You know, they're talking about the Palestinian cause and all of that. But for decades, what we've seen is these groups attacking Israel. You know, from within Gaza, rockets fired constantly into Israel. From Lebanon, we see the Hezbollah, which is very much weakened, and also Syria and Iran. So this is a unique time in history. It's an opportunity for us to rethink all that's happening in the Middle East and present bold new ideas. So it is certainly possible.
Well, and that was my next question, because there are plenty of stumbling blocks in the way, and I want to circle back around in a minute to what you said about looking at this from a different angle, because I think that is probably the most important part of this entire thing, if you ask me. But the relocation of the Palestinians, the first major hurdle that a lot of people have pointed out is, will they go?
Right. That's a question. But when you think about the common sense, that's the whole area is completely distracted. I mean, there's a debris, there are unexploded bombs, there's some 500 kilometers of underground tunnel structure that were built for the purpose of sheltering Hamas that can attack Israel at any time. So when you think on the other side, if this piece of land was somewhere where there's rule of law and protection of property rights, people would enjoy living in a coastal area of tourism. I mean, they would be very entrepreneurial. There would be a possibility to build that piece of land to become such a beautiful tourist destination with other adjacent hospitality parts. So basically, it's a pity that this cannot be used as such. But when you think about, again, destruction that is complete, I think that's the best common sense solution to get people out, but with the promise to bring them back. And you bring back people that have not done any harm, that have not been involved in any criminal activities, in any terrorist activities. So you would have to vet these people to come back to get a new generation of individuals that can perhaps govern themselves and have free elections and gradually establish the rule of law and protection of property rights with the help of America, Israel, our Arab countries, our Arab allies in the region. So I think it is a very common sense solution.
Well, and from the outside looking in, it's a no-brainer, especially and partially I think there may be a framing problem here in terms of the entire discussion. If you're going to have your house completely fumigated and remodeled, you move out for a while. That's the most efficient, easiest way to get things livable again. That's the situation that we're talking about here, and that's kind of the process that we're talking about. I just haven't heard it put in those terms yet, but that I think makes it a bit more relatable to the general population as to what's going on here. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, Dave. I think you've framed it in that correct position, meaning that in order for a rebuilding effort to take place and to detonate these bombs that are still, that were in the possession of the Hamas group, all the explosives and things of the nature, as Natasha mentioned, these hundreds of kilometers that are tunnels underneath that ground. I mean, someone needs to go in and really work on a rebuilding of that section in Gaza that holds Gaza Strip, work on infrastructure. And as you've rightfully mentioned, it is not possible to do so when you have a population of nearly 1.8, 2 million people right in that vicinity. And Jordan, Egypt, and other countries have an opportunity, if they are serious about helping the Palestinian people, if they are serious about seeing peace and prosperity come to this region, if they are serious to seeing a new chapter being drawn, then this is that moment, that unique opportunity in history to doing so. All this time there have been rhetoric about let's help the Palestinian people. And I think as we look back, this is that rare opportunity that we see in the Middle East to bring about lasting peace. If we're able to see a real rebuilding done, people that have a genuine interest, like Natasha mentioned, of coming back to contribute to the prosperity of that region, great things can happen. I mean, investments will pour in from around the world for this extraordinary coastal section of the Mediterranean. I mean, it's just a beautiful spot, but it's tragic that a terrorist group has held hostage an entire population, and we've got to look at new approaches in solving problems.
It's amazing how things have changed in just a couple of weeks. My entire life, we have talked about the concept of peace in the Middle East, and now we're discussing details of the plan. That's a complete shift from the focus of the conversation. We're going into a break. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about that and about what has led to that shift and how we're focusing on it. And the point of it, I think, is Joel and Natasha from America's Roundtable radio program. We'll continue with them on SuperTalk Mississippi on Middays in the Element Wealth Studios next.
Hey, this is Will. Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. SuperTalk Mississippi Middays in the Element Wealth Studios. Dave Hughes here. We have Joel and Natasha with us from America's Roundtable Radio program. And, it's amazing how much action you can get by making an out-of-the-box suggestion to come up with an idea that no one has thought of. But I think that is kind of the point of this. We have to start thinking of things in a different way if we want to have different results than we've had for the past several centuries. Let's be honest at this point.
Right. And as you mentioned, basically during the first Trump administration, we came to the Abraham Accords. So peace agreements between first-time Arab nations of United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan that joined with Israel to sign peace agreements. And it was at that time that when Saudi Arabia was approaching signing of the agreement that Hamas attacked. So we wouldn't have been in this situation today about talking about what to do with Gaza Strip if it wasn't for Hamas, terrorist organization, attacking Israel on October 7, killing 1,200 people and injuring thousands and hundreds of thousands of people being displaced, followed by Lebanese side Hezbollah attack. So basically, all this that we're talking about is now where we were 4 years ago. So if we had not changed the administration, I believe we would not have these atrocities and came to this point where we are today. So instead of talking as we did 4 years ago, Saudi Arabia joining, we have a peace agreement, we continue with prosperity, trade, and investments without wars, we are here today with Gaza Strip destroyed. Basically, we need to do something about it. And as you say, out-of-box thinking is the right thing to do. We shouldn't have been in this position in the first place.
Well, and that I think you bring up an excellent point, Natasha. There is a tendency among some people in America, especially the liberals, to blame the victim. That happens on a regular basis. We see that unfold in stories all the time, and that's kind of what they've tried to do here, because you do have to remember facts are facts. There's no way to get out of it. This all began because of the terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7th. As a result, you don't then get to turn around and blame the people that are defending themselves for doing something horrible and wrong. That just it turns the world on its head, I think, and that's wrong.
Absolutely, David. If I could just take a brief moment to share with you a quote from Yaakov Katz, the former editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post, and when he said, Trump's goal may not be to actually take over Gaza, but to shake the world out of its complacency. For too long, the international community has enabled Hamas and other radical groups by clinging to outdated conventions. The world's half-hearted responses to Hamas attacks on Israel, calling for Israel to moderate its response after terrorists murdered, kidnapped, and raped, have emboldened terror. This is precisely what Trump is challenging. And then he goes to just say, within just a few sentences, Trump upended decades of American policy and shattered the conventional thinking that had governed the Israel-Palestinian conflict for generations. In doing so, he forced a reckoning with the status quo that the world had long ignored, unquote.
And my favorite part of this. Yeah, go ahead, Natasha. Go ahead.
No, I think it's a different Middle East now. Basically, Israelis dealt with Hamas in Gaza Strip, with Hezbollah in Lebanon, attacked Iran directly after they received numerous rockets and missiles, direct attack from Iran to Israel. So dealt with Iran, destroyed their missile defense system, which was provided by Russia. So we have a new Middle East. Basically, all major enemies, terrorist groups are halfly or fully destroyed. And this is the time to restart the peace agreements.
I think you're exactly right. And we're just about out of time. I didn't even get into something that has not really hit the press very much. Some actions and orders taken by the Trump administration putting enormous restrictions on Iran, ordering it to have nothing to do with finance in Iraq, having to do with actually other countries, putting into place the Know Your Customer's Customer rule for people that deal with finance. It's a complicated subject. We don't have time to get into it right now, but I find it fascinating that no one's really talking about that, it seems.
Exactly, and it's something that certainly needs to be elevated to a higher level. In fact, the Trump administration has now advanced key initiatives that will hold Iran to account, and it should have been done. And if we had done that properly, we would not be in the mess we're in today. And certainly, heaven help us all, in this case, but we are certainly pleased to see that the Trump administration is doing the right thing, and it's protecting not only people in the region, but Americans.
And we just need to pay attention that European countries abide by that, because it wasn't the case in the past.
That's exactly right. We can't continue to try things the way we've always tried them and assume they're going to work differently this time. And that's the movement here. Guys, we could do 2 hours on this. I swear we could, but we're out of time for now. I thank you so much, Joel and Natasha. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. Don't miss America's Roundtable radio program right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. We've got news from Fox and SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher. Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. SuperTalk Mississippi, the Element Wealth Studios on Middays. Dave Hughes here. Always enjoy talking to Joel and Natasha. It's always a good conversation, and they bring a very unique perspective to a lot of things. One perspective that's not unique at all, this morning, just an hour or so ago, several Democratic members of Congress tried to storm the Department of Education building. That's a bit misleading in the way I put that. They went over, they wanted to go in and meet with Acting Secretary Denise Carter. Let me ask you something. When's the last time you heard of Congress going to the offices of a secretary to have a meeting instead of calling them into Congress? That's backwards. Hey, it never happens that way, does it?
No.
Well, you've got Maxine Waters, and I assume she brought the others with her. There were 3, 4, 5, 6 others, all of them Democrats. I assume she brought them so she would go to the right building. They wanted to go in and meet with Secretary Denise Carter. They had one lone security officer standing at the door that refused to let them in.
I've got the audio from that interaction.
Oh, yes. Good. I was about to read through the quotes. Please play that.
Look them in the eye. Come on, hold your face up. Look at him. Let him see you. This is him. Look at it. What's your name? Tell us your name. Give me that ID again.
Giving you the ID I showed it to you.
So what?
I showed you the ID.
You do what?
I showed you the ID.
Could you let me see the ID again? Huh? No? Will someone else ask him for the ID? Will you ask him for it? He won't let me see it again. You didn't see it. You didn't see it. They didn't see it.
Waters went on to say, so what are you going to do, beat us up if we try to go in? And he responded, you mean you're going to steamroll in here? This is performance art at its finest, is all it is.
By a bunch of politicians that can barely stand on their own 2 feet.
Yes. Oh, don't get me started on that video leaked last night of yesterday. Who was it? What was it? Ice cream woman. I just went blank.
Pelosi.
Thank you. Having to be helped to her car after she left Capitol Hill, hobbling along, barely walking. We got a lot of them. And again, that's not just on one side. That's across the board. The retirement home that is Congress at the moment needs major reform. But people keep voting for, well, let me put it like this. If you need, I always go back to the same example. I realize that. I would apologize, but you have to remember a very fundamental fact about me. I don't care. You've got a problem with your plumbing at your house. Why would you go find someone who can't make it from their work truck to your door to come in to look at it? And then when they get in there, well, back in their day, you had an outhouse. I don't know what all this newfangled stuff is, but let me tell you how it works and fix it for you. I'm sorry, an 82-year-old has no business voting on anything to do with anything involving technology or systems or anything at this point. They don't know. They quite clearly don't know what they're voting on, which means by default their vote is, well, in my book, it's fraudulent at that point. If you don't have the faintest glimmer of what someone is talking about. And I'm sorry, if you've got, parents, grandparents in their 80s, over, under, how many times have you been called to help them with Facebook? Do you want that generation ruling on, artificial intelligence copyright law? That's what we're doing. Maxine Waters, a perfect example of that. It's another one. Like you said, she has no idea what's going on. And proves it on a regular basis. A lot of them do.
Yeah, it's not that the elevator doesn't go all the way up for Maxine Waters. It's that the elevator's been stuck on the second floor for 40 years.
Yes. Yes, and unfortunately, she thinks she's accomplishing something by continuously jabbing the closed doors button. And that's all she's doing. It's not moving. Why isn't it moving? I don't understand. So if you want some of the problem, not all of the problem, but some of the problem, we have people trying to play in the Super Bowl this week in 2025 NFL using the 1963 professional football rules. Because that's what they understand. That's how we've always played the game. That's the way it was. Take those fancy hats off. You wear a leather hat, because they're not going to call them helmets. You and I both know that. So, as a result, you get really poor performance and poor results with people trying to use 50, 60, 70-year-old rules, ideas, concepts, and methods to deal with the modern world. It doesn't work. We keep seeing the proof of that over and over. So now you've got these people engaging in this performance art, going over to the Department of Education, which I would like to remind you, they like to act like the Department of Education is this monolithic, incredible, organization that has been around since the founding of this country. Carter made the Department of Education, I believe it was in 79. Is that right, Rhino?
Yep.
Yeah. Carter created the Department of Education. It is not old. I'm sorry, when I started school, there was no Department of Education. It didn't exist. So we need to quit pretending that just because something exists, it's A, always been there, and B, by default, is good.
What's even worse is, do you know where the U.S. ranked in world education in 1978?
That would be number 1.
Yep.
We were top of the heap. We were the best in class when it came to education. And then the Department of Education was put into effect, and we started plummeting in educational rankings.
The highest ranking I can find ranks us at 13th out of 20.
Yeah. From number 1 to number 13. So, again, this goes back Rhino's about to roll his eyes. He doesn't have his camera on, but the eyes will roll because he's sick of hearing me say this, as well, probably almost as sick as I am of having to say it. This is a perfect example, the Department of Education, what happens when you focus on process and not results. You look at the results since we put the Department of Education into place, they ain't good. There's no way to spin them to say we're doing great. No. We have fallen drastically, but we can't get rid of the process because the process is so important. That's the point of all this, is what we do, not what happens as a result of what we do. And that's backwards thinking.
That's what's got our early childhood education ranked 35th out of 37.
Oh, crying out loud. I'll tell you something else, and I'm going to lay this at the feet of everyone in general, just society, but specifically the liberals in this case. Saw an interesting discussion about the education system where somebody brought out the point and said, we keep hearing about how we don't have people going into STEM-related education at the rate of other countries. When you look at it per capita, there are more people in China going into science, technology, engineering than there are per capita in America. Same thing with India. Same thing with several other countries. Do you realize, and it's always been this way to one extent or another, but do you realize just how endemic it has become to mock, ridicule, and vilify people who are showing any signs of intelligence? Where does that come from? I'll tell you what a big driver is of how much that has increased over the last 20, 30 years. What is the major plank of the Democratic platform? Everybody is equal. We must never make fun of anybody, no matter how ridiculous they are, no matter how counter to good results they are. We must, take care of everyone and everything except for you jerks over there. Now, let me explain. You jerks need to go away, but everybody else. And here we are. It's been viewed for quite a while as socially unacceptable to excel, which is all science, technology, engineering. That's all that matters there. Your car doesn't matter how many nose rings you have. It doesn't care. It just wants to go. When we come back, take a break from this, let my blood pressure go down. From SuperTalk Mississippi News, Ben Milam joins us. Nothing to talk about with him in the state whatsoever. We'll see if we can scrounge something up next on Middays. Keep it here.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Middays in the Element Wealth studios here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. Sorry, I'm throwing off my game. A very rare instance where we got to have better walk-up music for Golden Throat here. Ben Milam joins us from SuperTalk Mississippi. We just around the office call him the voice, and everybody knows who we're talking about. You got a great voice, man.
Thanks, Dave. You too.
You really do.
It was very
thank
sweet.
You. I appreciate the socially acceptable lie. Now, I would ask you what's going on, but we don't have that much time. We've only have just over an hour and a half left in the show. It is so busy right now.
It really is. I mean, really since we'll say the first week of January when the legislative session started, for us at least, it's kind of been nonstop, and it feels like every day. Of course, you have a lot of stuff coming out of the state capitol in Jackson, but any other big thing just feels a little bit bigger because you have the session going on and all of the things federally going on with the executive orders and all the judicial things that are going, or the battles in the courts regarding those executive orders and everything. So at the state and national level, and then you have everything else that is always going on in Mississippi, which is pretty constant. So lots to talk about and a lot we're not going to get to, Dave.
Yeah, that's the way it works. One thing, though, that is a big topic right now at the federal level, at the state level, everywhere, is DEI, and we have legislation working through the Mississippi legislature regarding that topic, which is getting a lot of attention.
It is. 2 bills, one from each chamber. The House of Representatives earlier this week, I guess it would have been Wednesday, that they passed legislation that was aimed at addressing the DEI initiatives in specifically the state universities and public education settings, would effectively take out the kind of what is I'm trying to think of the old affirmative action, the original kind of DEI, right? Which is, it's kind of become this buzz, almost a cuss word, right, in certain circles. It is effectively going to do away with that and establish solely a merit-based system. And then the Senate, a day after, came out with their own bill and passed their own bill that is aimed at doing the same thing. And we know politicians, lawmakers love acronyms. It's called the Refocus Act, requiring efficiency for our colleges and universities system. Refocus Act. So that is specifically at higher education in Mississippi, would do the same thing. And so when you have a similar bill, almost exactly the same bill coming from both chambers, feel pretty strongly that something is going to be pushed through. One of those is going to be signed into law.
And, of course, there's always the chance that whatever minute differences they are, they just go into conference and, reach a deal, flip a quarter, and then move it on from there.
Yeah, that could be the case. And, again, these are very similar. There are really not a lot of major differences. And so it's probably going to be part of the process, is getting together those lawmakers in different meetings, maybe deciding which one they agree on the most and, checking the box and putting it on Governor Tate Reeves' desk and signing it into law. Again, would assume one of these in some form or fashion is going to make it to the governor's desk.
I would love to hear the argument for why this is a bad idea and we should hire people based on anything other than how equipped, how talented, and how capable they are to do a job. Yeah, that just seems like it should be common sense, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not my place as a journalist to give my opinion on that, but I will say a lot of the Democratic lawmakers, primarily, there were some Republican lawmakers that voted against this, but primarily Democratic, who spoke up in both chambers, in the House and the Senate, against these bills. Kind of the general drive of their argument was that it would leave minority students without certain safety nets that would give them a sense of safety and security and even acceptance on campuses where they're not the most represented demographically, and that a lot of the majority students, white students, have advantages that they don't. And, of course, that is, an argument that the bill itself and those sponsoring it and those that authored it, both bills, do not accept.
Now, another big one that's going on, and we're not even talking about the biggest one, the thing that everybody is talking about out of the legislature, which is the income tax bill.
Yes.
We've spent a lot of time on that, but one thing, we've gotten a little more information about it this week, the whole thing with online sports betting and the legislation passing through there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Caleb Sailors has done some really good work on this. This right now is just out of the House Bill 1302. And you can look it up. You can look any of these bills up and read them yourself. House Bill 1302 came out of the House and was passed on Monday pretty overwhelmingly, 82-10. And this was a very similar, it's almost a continuation of a bill that passed through the House last year. This year, it is familiarly, as it was called last year, called the Mississippi Sports Wagering Act. It would legalize online sports betting in the state of Mississippi. And really, I think the general feeling is that it's got an uphill battle in the Senate as it's passed to the other chamber, especially some of the leaders on the gaming committee in the Senate are opposed to online sports gambling, like Senator David Blunt. And it was kind of similar. There were similar hangups. A lot of the leaders just didn't want it in the Senate, and there was kind of a disconnect between the two chambers last year. Would expect something similar this year, but the conversation, I think, has evolved a little bit because of what you mentioned. House Bill 1, the Build Up Mississippi Act, would leave some revenue gaps in the state. If you're cutting all these taxes, you have to cover those gaps somehow, right? That's been probably the biggest part of this conversation. Well, a lot of these neighboring states in the southeast and across the country have legalized online sports betting and have brought in, for example, Tennessee, almost $100 million in additional tax revenue. Louisiana, after they passed it in their first fiscal year, brought in $64 million. So you would assume it would be a little less in Mississippi, but if it's $25 million, if it's $20 million, that's $20 million in state tax revenue that you did not have before. And, there's an ethical conversation, I think, in terms of the betting aspect and just letting it free flow. That's a lot of what the pushback is on the Senate side, I think. But it'll be really interesting to see, because a lot of these, almost all of the neighboring states around us, save Alabama and a few others, have passed this. And that's one of the best ways to convince lawmakers to do something is you look at very similar neighboring states and see what they have done and see that they benefited from it. So we'll see how it goes in the Senate. But again, it seems like it's going to be an uphill battle and might die again in the Senate.
It just feels to me like it's a very similar process to the one we went through to establish the lottery in Mississippi. Yep. A lot of the same arguments, a lot of the same back and forth, but we eventually wound up in a place where everyone was comfortable enough with it to get it passed. That just from the outside looking in, it appears to be the process we're going through with this, too.
I think you're right, and a lot of it... one of the biggest hang-ups last year was how is this going to affect the existing brick-and-mortar casinos that are in Mississippi. That is a large part of our tourism industry, and those, as you would imagine, the leaders of those casinos and the lawmakers that represent the constituents in those counties, they hold a lot of power in this conversation because the casino industry is pretty limited in terms of geographic locations. And so they don't want to destroy the casino industry. They want to help it, and they want to keep these casinos whole. They don't want to hurt their sports betting ventures on the brick and mortar side of things. And so one of the tweaks in this new bill is that there would be a fund that would make casinos whole if they don't reach a certain threshold of revenue that they have previously hit on average on the sports betting side of things. From this fund, they would be made whole. And so they would be protecting that revenue from brick and mortar casinos. And so this is it's going to be a very long conversation. I would imagine that's going to drag on, towards the end of the session. But it'll be interesting to see because they want to find ways to recover some of that revenue if they're going to cut taxes.
Well, the one good thing to me is that previous legislatures, when they were putting in the casino laws, were very smart, and they built in things to make the casinos a destination, not just a place to use the mechanism of gambling. I mean, if we didn't have that, it might be a different story, but I would point to athletics and concerts. You can stay home and watch them on TV, but a whole bunch of people don't because it's a destination. It's an experience, and I think that's important. Can you hang on through the break?
Sure
you
thing.
Got nothing else to do, right?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Ben Milam, we are claiming his day here on Middays. We'll continue with him next.
From the scene. Is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
SuperTalk Mississippi Middays, live in the Element Well studios, joined by Ben Golden Throat Milam, and we are talking about all of the news going on. Well, let's go to something a little more cheerful for just a second. I was there yesterday for the Sale of Champions, but today officially the Dixie National Rodeo kicks off, right?
That's right. Day one, and it's going to be about a 2-week event. Of course, there'll be some days off in between there, but golly, if I were to give you a breakdown, it would, or a full rundown of all the events going on, it would take up this entire segment. Caleb Sailors did a great kind of know before you go what there is to know, everything there is to know guide to the Dixie National Rodeo, 60th annual Dixie National Rodeo, the largest rodeo east of the Mississippi River. But there's a whole lot going on tonight. At the Trademark at 7 o'clock will be kind of one of the big commencement things, and there's really a whole host of other things going on today as well. But then tomorrow is the big parade, the kickoff parade, even though it is the day after the first day of it. But at 10:30, the kickoff parade will begin in downtown Jackson, and I'm trying to find the exact starting location of that at 10:30 a.m. Here it is at the corner of Mississippi and Jefferson Streets in downtown Jackson. You can go watch the procession begin, and then it'll go around the state capitol, travel down Amite Street all the way to the fairgrounds, and we'll come on back to the Capitol through President High and West Street. So all around downtown Jackson, you'll get a great look at some of the cowboys and cowgirls and local high school bands and everything in between. Of course, there's just endless live music. Got some really great musical acts at the rodeo per usual this year, but maybe especially so. I think some people are really excited about some of the musicians that'll take the stage at the Coliseum this year. But day one is today, Dave, for the 60th annual Dixie National Rodeo.
I know when I was leaving yesterday and returning back here to Southwest Mississippi after the remote, enjoyed that. I enjoyed that every time.
Oh, yeah.
Over at the Trademark. The wagon train had made it to the Byram area up the interstate coming north. They do it every year, and I love it every year because it's just such a non sequitur. You're not looking for that, but that's kind of one of the effects of the Dixie National Rodeo. Yeah. Almost the entire tenor of a big part of Jackson changes for a couple of weeks.
It does. It kind of feels like a different world almost, and I've never been a cowboy, I guess, if you want to say it that way. I've ridden horses and done things like that, and I got a little twang to me, but I'm not barrel racing or throwing lassos around calves or anything like that. But when you walk in the Coliseum and it's a dirt, the dirt covers the floor, and you see these legit cowboys and cowgirls doing their thing, and then you go listen to some country music, and you go see the livestock at the contest at the Trademark, and it just feels like you almost kind of step back into another time, a different world, however you want to say it. It's a really, really cool experience, and it makes you feel like a cowboy or cowgirl when you go do that.
And I'm going to reiterate something that was said by several different people yesterday. Tickets are selling fast for the nights that aren't already sold out. There are nights that are done. You just can't get in at this point.
Yeah, there are, and I know the Ella Langley shows and Zach Top shows, which are the I think that's next weekend. Please don't quote me on any of this stuff because, again, there's just a lot of different directions and different kinds of events to this. But we would encourage you to go either to supertalk.fm and see Caleb's guide to the 2025 Dixie National Rodeo for details on this, or the Dixie National website. Ella Langley, Zach Top, two kind of the headline shows. Those are both sold out, and the limited crop of tickets are also sold out for that. But a long list of other really, really exciting shows. And, of course, that includes the rodeo aspect of, some of the really cool cowboy things, if if you will, and contests that go along with that. There's also the high school rodeo that'll go on next weekend, Sunday in the afternoon. That's one of the really cool things I like to go see is some of these youngsters doing it for the first time in front of a really big crowd, and you get to cheer them on and see them do some really, really impressive things.
It's going to be a big time. Another big time is coming up 1 week from today, though, when we get college baseball season underway.
Oh, Dave, don't get me started, man. I've got the itch. Big time. I'm ready for some baseball, and we're starting to get a little taste of that baseball weather, just a little bit. And as it often does, it's going to cool down significantly next weekend for opening day. It's going to be a little bit chilly, but it'll still be a great weekend. High expectations for all three of the major D1 programs for Southern Miss. We got some of the preseason projections and all conference teams yesterday. Mississippi State, the only team in the top 25, preseason top 25 per D1 baseball, ranked number 18 in that preseason ranking, had one on the All-SEC first team, preseason All-SEC first team. That is Hunter Hines, a well-known quantity for the Bulldogs. He's got a chance to break the school record for career home runs this season, the first baseman / DH. And then Hunter Elliott back after almost 2 full years, who was because he was rehabbing an injury. Of course, the freshman phenom was a big part of that national championship run for Ole Miss in 2022. He's back, second team All-SEC in the preseason, and Southern Miss landed 5 on the All-Sun Belt preseason team, picked to win the conference. And backtracking just a little bit, Mississippi State picked to finish 9th in the SEC. Ole Miss picked to finish 15th, so some low expectations for the Rebels this season. But Southern Miss picked to win the Sun Belt in the regular season and had 5 on the preseason first team. That's Colby Allen, starting pitcher Colby Allen, first baseman Matthew Russo, shortstop Ozzie Pratt, left fielder / DH Davis Gillespie, and second baseman Nick Monastir. Lots to be excited about. I think high expectations for all three of these teams, even if Ole Miss, kind of down the table a little bit. I think the Rebels are going to have a good year along with these other two.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Don't count them out, because you want to sneak up on people sometimes. You don't start the season with that big target on your back.
That's right. Yeah.
And basically at this point, 1 week out from opening day, the Rebels have everyone else exactly where they want them. That's the way you look at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And a lot of the reason there are low expectations for Ole Miss is because they have so many new faces, but some really talented portal additions on the transfer side of things. And kind of in a similar position that Mississippi State was in, that national championship hangover. It's been 2 years since they've been in the postseason, but Mississippi State got back to the postseason last year to snap their 2-year streak. And I really think Ole Miss will do the same this year. I think they've got some real talent, along with some veteran pieces on the pitching staff, Hunter Elliott that we mentioned. But you talk about sneaking up on people in 2022. They really, there was an argument that they shouldn't have even made the NCAA tournament. And then they ran through it, and nobody really got even close to beating them, save for a couple of times in Omaha, and they win the national championship. So baseball is just a funny game, man, and it's really hard. It's fun to talk about the preseason predictions, but it really doesn't mean a whole lot until you roll it out there.
Well, and just like the regular season, with the exception of getting you into the playoffs, after that, it doesn't matter. Ole Miss proved it with that run that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it. If you've got the talent on the roster, a lot of it is veteran leadership, and all three of these teams have that kind of cornerstone and foundation. And then it's just getting hot at the right time, and having those pieces that can consolidate and fit together in the right way at the right time, and then anybody can beat anybody. That's what college baseball is all about, and that's what makes it great.
Well, my favorite part about this is we lose perspective sometimes. How many states have 3 major universities to where the argument is which one is the biggest lock to make it to the College World Series, and which one it might only host a regional? We are so in a land of suffering when it comes to college baseball, aren't we?
I think we're the best. I really do, because of course you have states like Texas and Florida, but I mean, you look at the population, and the difference is night and day. And then you take the population into account. Mississippi had 3 of the top 9 home average attendances in the entire country last year. Mississippi State led the country in attendance. Ole Miss number 4, Southern Miss number 9 in the country. You take any state, or you take our population and put it in any other state, they're not going to come close to that. We love our baseball, and we're dang good at it, Dave. I'm ready to get it going and see a little more baseball.
Ben just wants a hot dog. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah, I do. Badly.
Yeah, see?
Badly.
That's
all I'm thinking
talking about. That is sausage dog. Go with the sausage dog.
Oh.
That's always the
I love me a sausage dog, too.
We're coming up on lunch. I'm trying to pregame you a little bit here.
Dave.
Ben Milam with SuperTalk Mississippi News. Always enjoy having you in here, man. Keep up the excellent work and try to keep Caleb under control. I know it's hard.
It's a tall task, but I'll do my best.
I have no doubt. We continue on Middays in the Element Well Studios next.
Days with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back. Middays in the Element Well Studios on SuperTalk Mississippi. Dave Hughes here. You know, we talked about 1 week from today being the opening of college baseball season. 1 week from today is also Valentine's Day, Rhino, and we've had several years that somebody somewhere has done this, but the Visalia, California Police Department has put out social media posts, very Valentine-y, hearts, the whole thing. And on it says, roses are red, violets are blue. Your ex has felony warrants? Call us. They'll never know it was you. They are encouraging people to get revenge on their ex by turning them in for their warrants. This is a brilliant idea. I love it.
I'm just surprised Elon didn't write one up for ICE.
Well, we've got a week. Don't assume he won't. That's right in his wheelhouse, I think, that kind of thing.
Now I'm just picturing Tom Homan with Cupid wings reciting it.
How am I supposed to do another hour of the show with that image in my mind now? I have that mental picture. So he's got the diaper and everything. I didn't need that.
Well, you added the diaper. I didn't even say that.
Well, it was implied. You said Cupid. I think we all know what Cupid looks like. And it just Tom Homan's face on Cupid. Oh, that's perfect. Why not, though? I mean, we've seen the trend in recent years where I know there is an animal shelter. I think it's in Michigan, but I may be wrong on that. That is offering to name a stray cat after your ex for $25 and then neuter it. So this has been a trend recently of taking secondhand revenge on your ex, except that in this case, it's firsthand revenge. Just send them to jail. That'll teach them. Caught them messing around behind your back with somebody else? Well, you got a cure for that, don't you? It's brilliant. It applies to the most basic of motivations among human beings, which is revenge. Some people argue it's something else. They're not students of, humanity. I'm seeing a lot of posts about the USAID freeze and the freeze on spending in general right now. And this post runs through a list of studies that have been frozen now because the funding has been frozen. Studies on malaria treatment in children under age 5 in Mozambique. Treatments from cholera in Bangladesh. A screen and treat method for cervical cancer in Malawi. Notice the common denominator in all of this, Rhino. You go down through there. We got South Africa, Ethiopia, Cambodia, Jordan, South Africa. I am going to say something that sounds very harsh. Until every single person, and especially kid in America, is healthy, happy, and doing great, I don't care. You have to sweep your own house before you start doing litter detail in the neighborhood. It's not that complicated of an issue, but I love the trend among the liberals trying to scream as their justification for not doing anything that Doge is doing or Trump is doing, that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. No, we're draining the tub so we can get the leeches off the baby. And that's the part they're missing. Are there worthwhile things that are currently frozen? Yeah. Until you can figure out which ones are which, you have to hit the brakes and stop. And then you can start back up the things that are worth doing. But I know that was a harsh opinion, but again, Rhino, you know my mantra after all these years. I don't care.
And it's really not all that harsh when you dig down and look at the inanity of some of these grants that were given using your tax dollars. Like one of them, they gave $6 million to increase tourism in Egypt, the only country in the world that still has an ancient wonder of the world that people want to go see. But we got to spend millions of your dollars to increase tourism to that country.
Yeah, because reasons.
And that's one of the milder ones.
It's ridiculous.
That's not the DEI musical in Ireland that cost $70,000, or the trainee comic book that cost $30,000 in Peru, or the opera for trainees in Colombia of $47,000.
The Iraqi version of Sesame Street. I love that one.
That was millions wasted.
Yeah, that was millions of dollars. Can you spell IED? I mean, how does that work even? Well, next hour, we have that audio that I found that I've just been fascinated with from 1975 with Ronald Reagan talking about the works of the Department of Governmental Efficiency here in 2025. And if you don't believe me, you're going to find out exactly how accurate that is right after news from Fox News, SuperTalk Mississippi News, and then the final hour of Middays on a Friday right after this. Thanks for coming along.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Hour number 3 of Middays on SuperTalk Mississippi, live in the Element Wealth Studios. Dave Hughes here, and I first mentioned it yesterday. I actually found it Wednesday night and just sat there thinking about the implications. We have known that there has been waste and fraud and ridiculous expenditures by the federal government for a while. Rand Paul does his Festivus report every year around the holidays, outlining some of the most ridiculous things. But nobody's really done anything about it. This has been talked about for years. Rand Paul probably is sitting there right now going, okay, why is everyone suddenly interested in this now? I've been screaming this from the rooftops for years and years, and nobody really seemed to pay much attention. Well, there is a new sheriff in town, I think, is part of it. But this is how far back it goes, and I suspect it goes back further than this. Rhino, I sent you that link, that video. Back in 1975, Johnny Carson had Ronald Reagan as a guest on The Tonight Show. They did a long interview. Now, to put this in perspective, Reagan had just left the governor's mansion in California and had yet to decide to run for president. So he was kind of in between. He was betwixt and between the two. but he was still Ronald Reagan. And he got to talking about some of the problems with the federal government. Again, we're talking about 1975, 50 years ago, 50 years before Elon Musk came about, before the Department of Governmental Efficiency, before Donald Trump had ever run for anything, ever. Ronald Reagan was talking about this on national TV. We have that audio. You got it, Rhino, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and listen to some of this, because it really puts in perspective just how long-standing and entrenched of a problem we're dealing with here.
We're talking with former Governor Reagan, and during the break we were discussing. When I mentioned that I thought most people were not apathetic, I think they're confused, basically, because you hear intelligent people from both political parties or in the middle, conservatives and liberals, and they all seem to have different answers as to what is going wrong in the country. Some people say, well, let's let the government spend billions of dollars, and then other people say, no more federal spending. Let's give the tax rebates. And the other intelligent people say, no tax rebates. We've got to do this and do that. So everybody is confused. How do you see the thing? How are we going to get out of this?
Well, Johnny, I think that one of the things is that people keep looking to government for the answer, and government's the problem. A moment ago, you asked, about people and feeling not only confused, but low and down in America. First of all, the American people, if they would just take a little inventory and look around, you triple our troubles, and we're better off than any other people on earth. And we've asked so much of government, and we've gotten in the habit over the last 40 years of thinking that government has the answers. There's very little that government can do as efficiently and as economically as the people can do themselves. And if government would shut the doors and sneak away for about 3 weeks, we'd never miss them. Now,
Not wrong.
If the people... Anybody you had in mind particularly?
No, I said
Let's pause it right there. Let's pause it right there for a second, Rhino. And if we could skip ahead just a little bit, because Ronald Reagan, before he even decided to run for president, I think he had decided he was toying with the idea, but he had not started running for president yet. It's still years to go. He was still 5 years away from being inaugurated and being elected. But he basically, on the Tonight Show, gave his own version of the Festivus report. And that was, again, 50 years ago, and you just heard the comment just then. He said that the American people had gotten into the habit over the last 40 years. So we're talking 90 years, that span from when Ronald Reagan was talking about that process starting with the American people being a little bit confused and a little bit misled by what the government was doing with their money. 90 years from the start of that period to now. That's how long-standing and entrenched of a problem is. But he had a list. He didn't call it that, obviously. That's Rand Paul's thing. I hope he got a trademark on it. But the Festivus report outlines specific examples of wasteful spending from the government, like we're hearing about as Elon Musk and his crew go through the books with a fine-tooth comb. In 1975, Ronald Reagan had a list ready to go, just right at his fingertips. And that is kind of amazing when you stop to think about it. That it's been going on for that long. We have had people talking about it, but it's never gotten anywhere until now, because sometimes you got to shake up the world to get anything to actually change. Rhino, do we have that part of the audio?
If you got a time slot for me, it's 16 minutes long.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's probably about 4 minutes in, 5 minutes in. He starts talking about it, 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. I dropped this on Rhino at the last second, so totally my fault. But, one of the examples, and some of the ones that he brings out here, are very similar to some of the things that we're hearing now, like the program we keep hearing discussed, where they spent an unreasonable amount of money putting shrimp on treadmills. And you think, why would you do that? Well, look at it like this. If you get $2 million to put shrimp on treadmills to study, I don't know, the cardiovascular system of a creature that doesn't have one, what's a treadmill cost? A couple of $100? Shrimp, you can get those down at the fish market. And then the rest of the money is yours to play with. That's what's been going on through this entire thing. That has been the problem. It's not the stated purpose of the money, even though sometimes that's the problem too. It's that the stated purpose, even if you go through with it, doesn't cost nearly the amount of money that we're throwing at it. And that is a problem. And that's the problem that's being uprooted. But I would like to point out, I see several people basically espousing this same feeling, this same thought, which is this. When we start to see fraud being uncovered, watch for the people screaming about it the loudest. They're the ones doing the fraud. And that's accurate. The performance art of the Department of Education today with the Democratic members of Congress that showed up to try to slap together a photo op. Yeah. We know why they're there. Because that agency, that department, serves their purposes, not the purposes of the American people. When they start squawking, look at what they're squawking about. Because they're getting something out of it every time. That is the procedure that's going on. Of course, they have filed all sorts of lawsuits trying to trip this up, trying to stop it, and they've got some stops on some things. The buyback program has been paused now. Several of the other programs that they're doing, trying to cut down on some of the waste, have been paused by federal judges. It's going to be interesting to see how those play out, because I don't think it's going to end with anybody being 100% happy. I think it depends on the judge. Some of them are going to go for the Trump administration. Some of them are going to go the way of the liberals, the Democrats. And I really do think that will come down to the judges themselves, as it always does. This is not news. That's kind of the whole point of this. None of this is news. It's just that finally, it's not so much that people are paying attention finally. That's not the thing here. What's going on is people finally feel empowered to speak up about it. And they feel like they have a little agency in their citizenship and in how their tax money is spent, because they feel like they have someone on their side. So there is not as much difference in level of awareness of all of this now as some are trying to say. I think there's a difference in the confidence level that, hey, something could get done about it now. And that's huge. That, to me, is the most valuable thing that right now President Trump is providing. He's doing some fantastic stuff, but that's the big one to me. That's the huge one. We will continue on this Friday morning on Middays in the Element Well studios on SuperTalk Mississippi right after this. Keep it here.
Hey, this is Bob, and if
we interrupt this program,
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school.
That's perfect.
It's a wonder I can think at all
Just changed that from learned in high school to spent taxpayer dollars on, and we're right on topic. Welcome back, Middays in the Element Well studios. And during the break, we got it sorted out. As with many other situations in my life, there would have been no problem with that audio clip if I had just kept my mouth shut and let things proceed as normal, because we were almost there. And then I told Rhino to skip way ahead to find, no, it was right there. I think we've got that segment from Ronald Reagan on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson back in 75 now, right?
That's correct. Here we go.
All right.
Our biggest problem is that we have built a permanent structure of government, federal, state, and local. The permanent employees, and they've come to the place that they actually determine policy in this country more than does the Congress of the United States. Mm-hmm. There are 14.5 million public employees in the United States. That's quite a voting bloc. And the bureaus and agencies, now in Washington, I heard you talking earlier about some of the research programs. Mm-hmm. Well, there was a senator the other day, and he took up some pages of the congressional record. He was doing the same thing you were, listing all these crazy research programs and how much they were costing, and wound up his speech by introducing his own. He wants a study and a research of transcendental meditation. So, there's a state senator in Michigan, and he just found out the other day they got a $93,000 study on whether chitlins are bad for you. And he said that as a fourth-generation chitlin eater, he figured that he could tell you how for 93 cents you could find out the answer to that.
We laugh at those things, but they do happen, I guess.
Oh, listen, you had some beauties and there's some others. What would you say if I told you about a study in which this was called the demography of happiness? And in this study, the government found out that young people are happier than old people. They found out that people that earn more are happier than people that earn less. And they found out that well people are happier than sick people.
That's good.
This was $249,000 to find out it's better to be rich, young, and healthy than old, poor, and sick.
That's what I'm talking about. Again, several aspects of that fascinated me. Number one, this is in 1975, 50 years ago. You would be amazed how little has changed. Maybe the degree in some areas, but not the other thing. Did you hear in the first clip the round of applause, and in this one the laughter and the applause from a Hollywood, California audience? Well, Burbank. An audience in California in 1975 agreeing with all of this. That part has changed. Obviously, if you've seen any of the shows lately, you know what I'm talking about. But none of this is new. It's been going on for so long, and that's part of the problem, Rhino. It's entrenched. It is so deeply embedded into how government works. There's going to be a lot of noise dragging it out.
And it goes back to what I was saying about the whole liberal ideology and how it falls apart at the slightest of breezes, but it also only ever works when they hold a majority or can convince you that they are in the majority. That's why you've got people like AOC to this day, even though they lost the presidential election and the popular vote, still claiming, we outnumber them! We outnumber them!
They have to believe that, because that ideology doesn't survive, as you're saying, if you don't have that assumption. That's part and parcel of the entire thing. Well, obviously, we're on the side of right. Look how many people agree with me, which is at best a false equivalency in terms of rightness. Things are right or they're wrong, and feelings have nothing to do with it. And now we're getting to see it on display that the Democratic Party has one playbook. They got one play inside that one playbook, and they keep blowing that horn over and over and over. The difference is now it's not working, and they're confused, and they're scared. We've heard people referring to them as being consumed with panic. In some cases, yeah, it's pretty close. And it's not as simple as, oh, they're attacking my money. They're getting rid of the grift. Yeah, that's part of it, but that's not the main part. The main part of it, they could not even articulate. Their entire worldview is being completely rocked by this, as they have it drug out into the light of day and proven for everyone to see that the only way you get people to agree with their idea is to pay them. And deep down, self-identity and psychologically, they are getting rocked. And like I said, most of them couldn't put it into those words, but that's what you're seeing unfold. And it's fascinating, and I will make zero apologies for the level to which I'm enjoying watching it happen. Because that has become apparent with all the payments that have gone out to media companies. By the way, Rhino, I don't know about you. Did you get your check? I never got a check.
Yeah, I've always joked that if you wanted to be a billionaire, just start a nonprofit. I didn't realize I wasn't joking.
Yeah, no, this is the golden truth. And we're seeing it. We're getting the receipts now. That's exactly how it's been going on.
Just have to start a subscription service, and the government will pay you thousands and thousands of dollars per account.
We'd like to say hi to all the people that work at Politico listening. And for that matter, the BBC, who came right out in their protest of the funding freeze and admitted that USAID was making up 7% of their total budget, the money being sent to the BBC, the British broadcasting company, to manipulate the coverage of the news. Now, on paper, it doesn't say that the payment is for manipulation of coverage, although there are others that actually say that. Rhino, have you seen some of those?
Oh, yeah.
They come right out and say that it's for media manipulation. Some of the payments that were made to some of these media outlets, President Trump, by the way, has ordered the GSA to cancel all media contracts. Not paying anyone anything again until you sort all this out.
The problem with Politico, though, is they've doubled down on it, and they're trying to say, well, you just don't understand the inner workings of government. You don't understand that it's a trade publication. Other people pay thousands of dollars for a trade publication, except most of the examples that they would try to give would be private businesses, where if it doesn't have a return on that investment, they're not going to keep paying it. No, they're defending the fact that they were just eating at the trough of American tax dollars, and you were paying through the nose. Your tax dollars were going to pay people to lie to you about the reality of some stuff like, Hunter Biden's laptop, and whether or not former President Biden could finish a tic-tac-toe game.
Exactly. Because I'm sorry, nobody elected Elon Musk. Nobody elected the anonymous group of staffers who were actually running the country for the last 4 years either. But you don't hear any squawking about that from that side, do you? Because, again, there are no overarching rules that should apply to everyone equally. It's always been part of the problem. It's been part of the problem for decades, and it's just gotten worse and become so obvious now that you can't ignore it any longer.
Well, that's because the party of quote-unquote empathy, it's physically impossible for them to empathize with someone they disagree with.
Yes, 100%. I've been following this big scandal online. The Independent Science Fiction Publishing Group had an awards thing. Well, there's a science fiction author who is very much right-leaning. He has a lot of conservative opinions. The liberals got wind of this, that his book had been nominated and was in the quarterfinals. And they raised such heck that this organization went and quickly cobbled together rules as a code of conduct, as they listed it, and published it and said, because of our code of conduct that we just made up, we are removing him from the competition and kicking his book out. And then later, when they were called on it, their response for why they did it was, well, there's been a lot of people harassing our board and our members and our reviewers because of the fallout from our code of conduct. So basically they're saying that they kicked him out because people got upset because they kicked him out. It is the most ridiculous thing I have seen in a while, and that's saying a lot. There's only one thing that could possibly top it, and I've got it after the break. Going back to jolly old England, I'm sure the BBC giving this a huge thumbs up. Wait until you hear what they're putting trigger warnings on. Oh, this is a beaut. We'll talk about that when we return here on Middays, live in the Element Wealth studios on SuperTalk Mississippi. Next.
From the Seabrook. Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there, they began to wail. The band was jumping and the joint began to swing. You should have heard this knocked out jailbird sing, let it rock. Everybody let it rock. Everybody in old cell block was dancing to the jailhouse rock. Spider-Man.
Is it premature to announce this as the official theme song of the next Democratic National Convention? We can dream, right? We can dream.
I'm just trying to think of what's the most stereotypical drag queen song.
Oh, ooh.
It's Raining Men?
Yeah, probably so, yeah. I don't know. I am very happy to report I'm not really up on drag queen music. I have zero. They may play kazoos. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, that would be perfect.
Or something by Cher.
Cher would work. Yeah. Among the new artists, just from what I've seen online, I think Chapel Roan would be a good choice.
I still don't think I've ever heard a single second of any of her music. I don't feel bad about it.
I have, just because video clips keep popping up on social media. And it just auto plays, and I'm like, what is this? Where's the Slipknot? And then I have to go looking for it to cleanse my soul. All right, this is the kind of attitude that has been bothering most people for a while, and now it's bothering more and more people. The University of West England have now started putting trigger warnings on Shakespeare. Think about that for just a second. They have issued warnings for, just to give you a few examples here, they have trigger warnings that Macbeth contains blood and psychological trauma. They have put warnings on Romeo and Juliet that you might be triggered because the main characters, there's suicide involved. And we don't want you, being psychologically damaged. My favorite, in The Tempest, they have put warnings on it because it contains storms and extreme weather. And they want to make sure that doesn't catch anyone off guard when they come to see a play called The Tempest, that there might be bad weather involved. This goes back, we have talked about this before, and I saw this play out in real time in the early to mid-2000s. We talk about it all the time, the movement towards participation trophies, things like that. And I'm sorry, no one gets to hold themselves up to a different standard. If you had a child that played youth sports during that period and they received at any point a participation trophy, congratulations, you're part of the problem. I don't care if you're the one that gave it to them. I don't care if it was your idea. You let them have it? You let them think they had accomplished something because they literally showed up? That's on you. Because now we have developed an entire generation. Those kids in, 2006, 2007, 2008, that area, they're 19, 20 years old at the oldest. they're the ones that are buying into a lot of this nonsense because they have been conditioned, they have been pre-taught that everybody needs to look out for their feelings. That's all a participation trophy was, because we didn't want second place to feel bad. We didn't want last place to feel bad and be motivated to do better. No, you get a trophy too.
Unless it's a dude beating girls in girls' sports.
Well, that's there's a different kind of trophy needs to go to that. And unfortunately, they keep handing them out. Hand over fist. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned that because that kind of plays into this. I have seen the argument in recent days from the left that there's only like 40, 50 transgender athletes in America. Why is there such a big deal over this? Well, let me put it like this. Let's look at the other side of that math. How many girls did each of those guys compete against if you add it up? If you add up one guy who, let's say, let's just pick one at random as a track and field person, over the course of several years, competing against girls, winning, knocking them out of a chance of scholarship, how many girls were on the track with them during the course of their athletic career as a guy saying he's a girl? That's how many were affected on the other side directly. And indirectly, the girls that see this going on that didn't even bother to try, didn't even bother to get involved, because what's the point? This, again, is another example of only looking at the side of things that benefit your argument. Because, yeah, there's not that many. What's the big deal? Because that's not the people we're looking at. You are the party that has been doing everything possible to protect that side of the equation. Now somebody else is stepping up to protect the other side, and you got your feelings hurt. I think we need to have a participation trophy ceremony in Congress. If it's good for the goose. And now let's give a trophy to all of the non-winners in this body who at least still showed up and got their government paycheck. And call them up one at a time. Because that's good, right? That kind of attitude, that kind of motivation and mindset is what we need more of in the world. Bull. Get a majority of people to agree with you without paying anyone to convince them to agree with you, and then we can have a conversation. But we're nowhere near that, and as we have found out, we were even further away from it than we thought we were.
But why would they have to do anything besides pay somebody? I mean, if you've got half the population or a little less than half the population willing to buy their logic of there's only 40 or 50, why does it matter? There's only a dog turd in my bowl of Cheerios, why does it matter? The other Cheerios are fine, right?
Yes. There's probably 150, 200 Cheerios in this bowl. This affects like 10 of them. Come on. I don't see your problem here. You're being elitist. No. Don't like eating poop-stained Cheerios. That's the point. It's the entire point. I don't know if you heard, they've been protesting all over the place in Washington about what's going on. They had a big protest scheduled Wednesday night in Washington. They were protesting against Elon Musk. They were protesting against Doge and all the things being uncovered and released. And it got canceled because it was too cold. This is the level of dedication we're talking about here. This
reminds
is the
me
level
of the
support.
meme. Our generation will be the ones that decide the future of this world, when that generation can't decide if they're a boy or a girl.
Well, they were having, I think it was in Oklahoma, somebody made a post. It would have been sad, except I was laughing too hard to have any other kind of emotion attached to it. Was a transgender person sitting on the steps of the state capitol holding their sign, their protest sign they had made. It was a big protest scheduled against the mistreatment of transgender people. They were the only person to show up. They were literally the only one to bother to show up. Because as it turns out, when you don't have the funding to pay people to show up for these things, they find other things to do, or they don't take a day off work, or they go get a job because they're no longer getting that money, and you got to buy your poop Cheerios somewhere. That's the other. There are so many effects rolling out from this, secondary effects, and one of them is the level of attendance at some of these protests. You watch. Watch what you're going to see. We have had thousands of people protesting stuff.
That's why the geriatrics in Congress are making the field trips themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they can't astroturf it anymore.
And it's really a beautiful sight to behold. Now, having said that, I'm sure you have seen the mass rallies and protests going on by people waving Mexican flags against the concept of deporting illegal immigrants. I've also seen a large group of Mexican people who are in the country legally. Many of them went through the process and became a citizen, who are telling them, quit waving that flag on American soil and demanding your rights. If it's so good down there, go home. If it's not, shut up and accept where you're at now. But they still have thousands of people. I wonder how many of those are still getting paid, those protesters. Or is it just a fun thing to do on a Thursday night?
Well, the human trafficking money from U.S. aid really was in the neighborhood of millions upon millions of dollars, so I'm sure some of it's still in the ecosystem.
By the way, Mexico started sending troops to the border. They sent National Guardsmen wearing masks and body armor out to scrub through the underbrush. They were finding ladders that were hidden. They were finding ropes. They were finding all sorts of supplies that somebody had gone out there and hidden for the immigrants to use to make it easier to get into the country. Just process that one for a bit. Final segment of Middays on this Friday morning. Right after this, in the Element Wealth Studios. Keep it here.
We've sent that rip. Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Shake, Sinora, shake your body line. Shake, Sinora, shake it all the time. Work, Sinora, work your body line. Work, Sinora, work it all the time. My girl's name is Sonora. I tell you, friends, I adore her. And when she dances, oh brother, she's a hurricane.
There's one thing I do love, and it's one secret of Elon Musk's popularity with the right now, is that when things happen, he just throws up a poll on X and says, what do you want me to do? And then he goes by whatever the poll says, and we got another one of those right now, don't we?
Oh, yeah, the Doge staffer that had got dug up, that he had an anonymous account where he was tweeting some unsavory things, some edgy jokes. Well, he tendered his resignation, and Elon accepted it, and now Elon has put a poll out saying, hey, should I give him a second chance? Does he deserve a second chance? And the last I checked, the poll was 80-20 in favor, and it's now got the attention of J.D. Vance saying, yeah, give him a second chance.
Yep. Because you got to understand, nobody cares about whether or not the exterminator has a permit for the flamethrower when your house is infested with rats. You just want the rats gone. Or like that story from Australia this week where the guy had 102 highly venomous snakes in his backyard. He didn't care who showed up, what their qualifications were, other than, can you get these snakes out? Great. Go to it. I'll be locked in a closet inside. Let me know when you're done. That's the situation here. And it's just not going the way some people think. I got something totally off this subject that I just want to throw out here that a lot of people probably aren't aware of. on paper anyway, and functionally at the moment, London is out of gold. Have you heard about this, Rhino?
No.
Yes. The gold price has been going up and down crazily in trading over the last few weeks, because for the last 7 weeks there has been a surge of shipments of gold to New York City, specifically to New York. 7 weeks that's been going on. And now we're at the point to where they basically have no more gold to send from London. The markets, the people that analyze these things, and I'm sure there will be some bounce back as they get more in, and there are delays in shipments and transfers and things like that that are contributing to this. But that has been the alert, and I'm looking at a story about it right now, and the way they put it, liquidity in the London market has been diminished.
AKA, they got to go pry the big fancy key out of King Charles' hand real quick.
Hey, Chuck, let me see that hat for a minute. That kind of thing. It goes on to say the Bank of England cannot handle the onslaught of commercial banks wanting to borrow and fly gold to New York. So London's out of gold. Just thought I'd throw that out there as a fun little factoid for you to amaze your friends and family with over the weekend, because I'm sure they will all be just as fascinated as we are by this.
They've got the exact opposite problem India has.
Yes.
India has so much gold that they restrict how much you can bring into the country, and they are strict about it.
Yes. Well, they're out of space to store it. Almost literally.
And they want to keep the valuation within the confines of India as high as possible.
Yes. They do not want to increase the supply, because it's the old Economics 101, Chapter 1 of your Intro to Economics book talks about supply and demand. It's just that simple. That applies to a lot of what's going on right now with the American situation, whether it be economically, whether it be politically. Supply and demand always wins. The more you got, you better have even more people that want it, or it's going to wind up being worthless.
It's what bit a whole bunch of people in the butt with Beanie Babies back in the day.
No, don't get me started on that. Beanie Babies, what were they called? The Cherished Moments figurines. That was a big deal for a while.
Everything was collectible in the 90s.
Yes. Right
to the point where nothing's collectible from the 90s anymore.
Well, that's what happened with the comic book industry, because you had all of the old comics from the 30s, and you got to remember, people used to wad them up, they used to cut them up, used to throw them away, selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the comic book industry said, oh, I'm into this, and started printing millions of copies that were immediately put away in hermetically sealed containers. Well, supply's too high for them to be worth much. That's not your kid's college fund, and it never was, but you bought into it. Rhino, as usual, I've had a good time griping with you.
Always a good time.
That's the closest thing to a hobby I have left at this point. But we will, I'm sure, do it again soon. You have a wonderful weekend, my friend.
You too.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.